On Wednesday, it is Rekha from the Des Moines Register to find out what's on her mind as we listen to Rekha's voice.
Good
I love that
morning.
shirt. Is that what is that made of?
Is that velvet?
This shirt? No, it's silk.
Oh, is that velvet?
Looks comfortable.
Does
Anyway.
it look? Yeah, thank you.
We're not here to talk
Thanks
about
for staying focused
fashion.
this morning.
Yeah, really. If you'd like to talk about my pants, my boots, I'm actually able to discuss all of those things very.
If you
We're
want
going
to
to talk about another guy who also wears black a lot.
Good segue.
Johnny Cash. No.
Point for Jason on that one.
Segue. You definitely scored big on that
Tell everybody
one.
who we're talking about.
We are talking about Justice Antonin Scalia of the U.S. Supreme Court and his recent comments that black people belong in inferior colleges than the State University, the University of Texas, because they don't do as well in accelerated schools that have high standards, and so they shouldn't be pushed too fast. They should be kept in lower schools where they can be a big cheese. And it is the most... first of all, it's an incredibly stupid thing to say.
Do you think what he was trying to say is people, and he didn't say this at all, but do you think what he was trying to say was that students sometimes feel pressure to go into major universities that they can't handle?
Yes, but why would he generalize about all blacks? I mean,
that I don't
that's the part that's really offensive.
And as an aside,
Yeah.
wouldn't it be great to be in the Supreme Court and be able to say and do anything you want, and you cannot get fired?
Well, yeah, and that's the other thing. Nancy Pelosi is calling on him to recuse himself from any cases involving discrimination because he's not qualified to, like he's going to do that. But my point is, you know, we're in the middle of a presidential election cycle, and this next president could actually appoint as many as 4 new justices because there are going to be at least 4 of them who will be in their 80s sometime during the next president's first term.
Oh, wow.
And so, yeah, and Scalia being one of them. So actually, I mean, this would be something that I think that we should actually grill candidates on. Will there be, not a litmus test necessarily, but, you know, everybody asks it in the context of abortion and abortion rights. Are you going to appoint a justice who either supports abortion rights or doesn't? And, you know, there are other things that we need to worry about too now as far as justices' beliefs. And this belief that, or at least the way it was expressed in court, that black people are inherently inferior scholastically is one that is just so offensive to the very notion of our Constitution. And here's a man who's there to uphold the Constitution and make sure it's being followed. So
I saw the headline. I haven't read the story. Is he saying that, and I think you touched on this, that a lot of, let's say a lot of African Americans, at least in the bigger cities, come from inferior public schools, and so he's saying, well, they can't handle colleges that are of a higher level? Is that what he's implying?
Because a lot of times they're
that's-
given opportunities
that's
through
his
scholarships and stuff to go to these major universities, and they can't handle it because they haven't given the...
But I think they can probably decide that for themselves, right?
Well, right. So actually this was part of, I mean, the context in which this was all said was about a debate on affirmative action, because the University of Texas has used affirmative action, and now it was in court arguing to continue the use of affirmative action, whereas the justices are, I think, inclined to rule. They seem very split on this one, but Scalia was questioning the benefit of affirmative action. And as you all know, affirmative action has been in place to help compensate for historical discrimination against certain groups, including African Americans and including women. Not as, and I think that, you know, it's often misconstrued as being a system where you give preference, overt, outright preference to a black person or a woman who is not qualified compared to a white person who is qualified. It's just one of many factors that are assessed when they're making determinations about who should get admissions. And there are so many reasons why. I mean, it's almost mind-boggling that he said this, because there's so many things that are wrong with that statement. First of all, does he know how many black people, including the President of the United States, have gone to major Ivy League schools and done extremely well? Harvard, Yale. Does he know that Supreme Court justices and presidents tend to come from major good schools? So if you're saying that one entire population should be relegated to inferior schools, then what are their prospects of ever getting to be president or getting to be a Supreme Court justice or anything, you know, significant that is judged in those ways in terms of elite college names? So that's one thing. The other thing is, in the interests of society, you want to send a diversity of people to the good schools, the elite prep schools as well as colleges, because you want people to come out prepared to interact with each other in the larger society. And then, so what are my other arguments? My gosh, I think that actually, George W. Bush used this phrase, which I very much would apply in this case, the soft bigotry of low expectations. That if you are telling black people that they are not prepared to compete, that they should go to lesser schools, that there are lesser expectations of them, people rise to the level of expectations of them, you know, in society, by their families, by schools. So it's not, you know, the notion, if he's saying that black people are inherently intellectually inferior, well, that is such a preposterous notion, I don't even want to go there. If he is saying what you suggested earlier, Jackie, or you suggested, Jason, that they have come from poorer schools and are less prepared, well, then the answer is to give them a leg up and to help them, give them some, you know, intense extra classes, but understand that qualifications for college don't just come on SAT scores and grades or the schools you went to. They also come in how you have overcome adversities and in intellectual curiosity, a whole bunch of other things, what you've done to push yourself forward. So there are many ways in which that issue can be tackled. Also, when there are accelerated people in a class, it tends to elevate the level of the whole class.
That's
so
why this show falters a lot.
Well, are they
this show, did you say?
Yeah. We're all kind of
just
dumb.
sit in your corner?
All right.
You do the countdown for Star Wars.
Did they go either way if affirmative action has helped over the years or has not? I mean, are they actually attacking?
His implication was, from reading one brief on that side of the equation, of the argument, that it hasn't. But he didn't give any numbers. I mean, this was just totally generalizations. Exactly.
I mean, there's volumes of evidence that show that you know, the income level or the degree to which schools are funded has a huge impact on the kids that are coming out of them. But it's not just black kids. It's kids of all colors.
And while we're talking about that subject, what about kids who are legacy admissions to colleges?
They just get in
because, like George W. Bush, right? You know, he got into Yale, and he has said himself, he's joked about it, he was not intellectually prepared, but he got in because of his family.
I'm really mad at my parents about that.
All right, so if people want to see this, where can they find it?
They can find it on page 17A of this morning's Des Moines Register with a rather unflattering picture.
That is a great picture of.
Well, he's not a sexy man.
That's
not what he's known for.
Yeah, that wasn't necessarily.